We're starting a 3-week series on relationships, and it's going to be on relationships that cover hang on, sorry, cool. Thank you, that's it. I got thrown. It's on the topic of relationships that covers all relationships, not just marriage relationships, boyfriend-girlfriend relationships. No, we're going to focus on relationships. And the definition of a relationship, if I can get this working, yep, cool. It's basically a connection between two people. Now, it can be between countries. You hear on the news and the politics and whatever, relationships between countries and how that's going and how you work with other countries and how you placate them and all the behind-the-scenes stuff that happens to make it look like everything's hunky-dory when they're shaking each other's hand on the TV. Relationships with your animals, with your pets. I'm one of these people that gets carried away on Facebook watching all these lovely little clips about a person with their pet and how the pet saved them, or they were suffering depression, or how the animal was is a therapy or an assist dog, and those sorts of things. So relationships can involve pets. And I have to say that because I have a cat and a dog, and without them, the world would fall apart, really. But I think the definition at the bottom is what really rocks it for, because this is where we want to be focusing on, not your relationship with your pet, by the way. Continuing and often committed association between two or more people, as in a family, friendship, marriage, partnership, or other interpersonal link in which the participants have some degree of influence on each other's thoughts, feelings, and actions. Now, some of these relationships are ones that we actually have no say in. What family are we born into? Who do we have to work with within a work situation, etc. But how do we work on those relationships and how do we make them work? Now, relationships are also based on a variety of things as listed there, and relationships can come and go. So an example being when I had kids going to school, especially at the primary school, there'd be relationships and friendships I would have through the school, through other parents. And I'm now at a point where all my kids are through school. I don't see those people. I don't see them at all. I don't see them very much. But they were fantastic for that season. So common interests, time together, opportunities to carry each other, you're there. It could be within your sporting environments. If you're a random football supporter and you turn up, it doesn't matter if you don't know the people beside you, if they're wearing the same coloured scarf as you, suddenly they're your long-lost buddies as you're cheering your team on or bemoaning the umpires being blind, etc. We used to have, when our kids were younger, we had port membership, and it would be interesting to go to those games, and we would go as a family, and we would turn out, we would sort of become, not quite, you could sort of nod and smile at those around you because you knew who was going to turn up and the seats beside you and who you needed to watch out for after half-time by the time they got a little tipsy. And if the game was going well, how far the beers went and all that sort of thing. So we would sort of have vague, tenuous connections there. But obviously once we stopped going to the football, came to an end. What I want to focus on though is, as Christians, we have the added bonus, the added benefit, the piece of cake as such being given to us on a plate. We don't have to earn this, we don't have to find it, we don't have to tick all the boxes, but we have Jesus. And Jesus has got to be part of our relationships. Doesn't matter what our connections are, whether it's marriage, friendship, parent-child, and I want to be focusing on that for today. I'm going to take us back to the Old Testament. And we have here, if I just turn myself off, no, there we go. We have here the basis for all relationships. The 10 Commandments are written about in Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5, and they actually give us a bit of a blueprint for relationships. Doesn't matter who you're relating to, where you are, what you're doing, this is a fantastic blueprint. I'm going to break it down and look at 2 sections, because the first 4 are based on our relationship with God. And I think it's important we acknowledge and are aware that the first 4 of these 10 are about our relationship with God. Because if we don't have that going, then we're not really going to be very good at the next 6. We're going to struggle. And if we do struggle, we've got to go back to the first 4. So the first 4 speak to us about Him and what we need to do with God, to God. We need to listen to Him. We need to obey Him. He created the world, the universe, and all that is in it. So if He can do all that, I reckon He'd be pretty good at helping us with relationships. We have got to have God only at the top. If you remember nothing else, God only and God in your life, and I don't want to make this sound easy, but it is. If God is in your life, relationships will be better, and or your dealing with them will be better. You will be stronger. We are to have no other images, no other idols. There is one God. So if we're going to put sport first, or having that great car, or finances, or even our relationships first, then God's sort of at the back. It's God who's giving us a piece of cake. If we are going to go around calling God bad names, being disrespectful, then obviously that's not going to help in relationships, and that's something we can take into our earthly relationships. But God's name is holy, and we need to be reverential to Him. That song, I Speak Jesus, is one of my favourites at the moment. And I think it just brings it down to something so simple. I speak Jesus. In amongst anything, any troubles, any difficulties, Jesus. That is such a powerful name. God is such a powerful, awesome creator of everything and stars, and it's just like if God can do that, I reckon He can help and support us. So if we keep Him first and central. In the Old Testament, the idea of the Sabbath, which is number 4 there, I'm not sure yet, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, that developed into quite strict rules and routines, and you're not allowed to do this, and you're not allowed to hitch your animal, hitch, you probably can't hit them either, but hitch your animal to go and do work. You weren't allowed to do anything. And yet, like many things, mankind sort of found loopholes, and I believe that it would be people maybe on the day before the Sabbath would sort of position various bits and pieces a certain distance from their home, so that when they just sort of walked sort of within reach of home, but then they could sit there, then they could sort of move a bit further because they have actually had rest. And, there are loopholes, and loopholes do my brain in, so I've probably messed that story. But it's like there were loopholes. People would not obey the Sabbath. And then they had these rules and regulations. And obviously Jesus got picked up on healing somebody on a day of Sabbath. So it does sound quite extreme. But the New Testament brings it as a reminder for worship, as remembering creation, resting, gathering, just in a sense pressing the pause button, so then you can, the next day or after your rest, go out and serve others. Serve God and serve others. None of us, not even Jesus. I mean, Jesus went and rested. You would read about Him going and resting, or going away and having some time by Himself, going away and having some time with God. And God rested on day 7 after creating the world. So why can't we? And what makes us think that we are so super duper that we can just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going? Our bodies are not built for keeping on going. So rest. Remember the Sabbath. And if you can't do it on a Sunday, which is the way we do it for church because of work and stuff like that, that's fine. It doesn't have to be a Sunday as such. But you do need to have a time of rest. If you are not resting, you are going to be no good to anybody else, much less God. So the first 4 are about our relationship with God. Where is God in our life? What are we doing? Are we putting him first? Are we having no other images around him? Are we honouring his name? And then are we having Sabbath? The next 6 are then about the basics for us living with each other. It's full of love. It's full of respect. It's protecting human life in any shape and form. There's talk about the adultery is obviously there, but how when those sorts of things within relationships, within marriages, trust is broken. And it's not just between 2 people. It involves families, and it doesn't matter whether it's sort of the parents and the aunts and the uncles who turned up to the wedding and blessed you and wished you on your way, but it's also the children. And we're seeing the effects of this on children. Children going through schooling without one parent or troubled parents or kids that have to be with one parent a particular part of the week and with another. As a teacher, especially more as a relief teacher, I've had a couple of times where kids will come in with their school bags, but one child comes in with a pillow and like a backpacky thing. And that's because they've been dropped off by one parent and this evening they're going to the other. And I've seen the effects on children when, they're just sort of, my pencil cases at mum's and my school uniforms at dad's and, yeah. You know the story, and I know that this is some of your backgrounds, and I just want to encourage you on. If you're keeping God central, that despite what is said here, God can heal and work with relationships. But trust is broken. I think you would know all this. If we're stealing, we're not sharing. Why would I want to share with you if you're going to steal from me? We're protective, we're locking everything up, we're labelling everything, and we can't be trusting those around us. Trust is broken. Lies. I, for one, am one who, I feel I can't lie to save myself because you would spring me before I'd even thought of it. I'm no good at keeping a story going because I'd forget what I'd said and who I said it to and how I get picked up very quickly with that one. But, again, it's like the trust is broken with some of these. And as much as it sounds like you should not do this and you should not do that, and it sounds a bit, well, you're just telling us all the time what we shouldn't be doing. It's actually there as a blueprint. Coveting leads to breaking all the commandments. So this is providing a basics for living with family, with community, with neighbours, and not doing so leads to breakdown and destruction. If there is no respect, it leads to downhill relationships and trust is lost. And it can seem pretty limiting because we've got boundaries. But the boundaries provide the basis for society to function harmoniously. It provides safety and freedom actually within that, which can sound a bit bizarre. So even though we've got boundaries and it seems limiting, it's actually providing safety and freedom. Again, when you're bringing up children or within a school environment or within the home environment, you've got your rules. You're not allowed to eat in the bedroom, or you're not allowed to have your technology, or you've got to be in bed by this time, or we've got to be leaving by that time, or you are responsible for, making your bed and tidying up your bedroom or whatever. But those rules are there for us to all live harmoniously and to work together. Children need boundaries, and we as adults also have boundaries. We're not allowed to go out and just do pedal to the metal 100 down Goodwood Road. There's signs there to say it's got to be 40, it's got to be 60 or 50 or whatever. So these are rules and regulations to provide safety and freedom. And from there, we can take that into relationships with others. A couple of Old Testament examples, and seriously, the whole Bible is full of this. So I'm just, not randomly, but plucking out just a few. But seriously, the whole Bible is about relationships. All sorts of relationships. The one here from Samuel, about Jonathan made a solemn pact with David because he loved him as he loved himself. Jonathan sealed the pact by taking off his robe and giving it to David, together with his tunic, sword, bow, and belt. So this amazing relationship between David and his closest friend Jonathan. And we read later, when Jonathan was killed, David was heartbroken. We read later that David then calls, "Are there any children of Jonathan alive?" And we read how his youngest son, who was crippled in some way, is alive. And he's brought to David, really not sure what's going to happen here, but David honours Jonathan's memory by blessing his son and his entourage there. Relationship carrying through. The relationship of Ruth with Naomi. Ruth replied, "Don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." This is a Moabite woman who was from a disgraced country as such, nation, wanting to go with Naomi and being prepared to go back with wherever Naomi went. Ruth was prepared to lay it all down and go. Ecclesiastes. There's a piece here which is often brought out regarding marriage, but I think it's actually relationship full stop. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Two people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm, but how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. So the last piece is often brought out at a time of marriage, when a man and a woman are getting married, and if you've got God as that third rope, He's got you entwined, and if you keep looking to God, even though you're not looking to your partner because you really think, what have I done and what are they doing, and I just want to pack up my bag and leave and I need time out, you can't get away from God. And God will give you the ability, the grace, the mercy, whatever, the words, because somehow you're tied to that partner, but with God. I can certainly speak about that from the perspective of a couple of times I've been part of prayer triplets, where there was three of us that would meet for an hour or so once a week, and we would chat about the week. We would pray for each other. We would hold each other accountable. In Psalm 133, how wonderful and pleasant it is when brothers live together in harmony. The New Testament, again, is full of examples. I think Gary's referred to in a previous sermon about the relationship of when Jesus is on the cross and his thoughts, instead of being on himself and he's going to heaven or the pain and the agony, in amongst all that, the thought is looking to John and looking to Mary, his mother Mary, and saying, Mary, look after John as your son. John, treat Mary as your mother. Like when I am in pain and agony, and certainly not to that extent, I'm not thinking of other people, I'm thinking about myself. But oh my goodness, if that's what Jesus is doing, I think we can sort of look to that as an example. But there we have relationship. Jesus, in his dying moments, is thinking about connecting and making sure others are connected. Just some of the examples, Paul's letters to Timothy is about encouragement and connection, and you can do this, and instructions and relationship. Jesus' connection with the woman at the well. His relationship when Jairus comes and says about my daughter. He doesn't dismiss, he doesn't push anybody away, but he meets those people where they are, and relationship, connecting with them. The number of times he said about children, do not push your children away. And anyone who is not looking after treating children and or dismissing them, they may as well have something heavy tied to them and chucked in the river. He values children. His care and concern is for the children. His connection and love for Lazarus, the shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. If Jesus can cry, then, there's nothing wrong with us crying. If Jesus can meet all of these people and deal with the Samaritan woman at the well, not someone from his own background, but he's making connection with her. She would have left that feeling connected. I've got someone who's noticed me. Jairus would have felt, someone's noticed me, someone's connected with me. And I've got other dots there because there's just so many connections, so many relationships. Jesus is our role model. And as much as none of us are going to achieve that and, be like him 100%, but if that's what he can do, and that's how he approaches and deals with people, then I think we can give it a fair crack. And seriously, if God knows our heart, so God can see what we're trying to do. He can see that we're trying to make connection. So even though our words, we might think, oh my goodness, I've just embarrassed myself, I didn't get the right message through, that was a real botch up, I'm trying to reach out, but it came away awful. God knows our heart. And through relationship, we can repair relationships with others. I have seen and heard so many stories of people who have just got God central to whatever storm is happening around them. Rubbish families, rubbish relationships with marriage partner, with parents, with children. We also, the story or the parable of the prodigal son. It's relationships. It's keeping God central and then letting him work through us, through the Spirit, in these relationships that are struggling, are rocky. So, as I come in for landing, if the worship team would like to start moving up for the last song, I just want to end with one more little story from the Bible where it just occurred to me in the last few days that just before Jesus is going to be arrested and then crucified, he's sitting there at the Last Supper. He's saying to everyone, I know that I'm going very soon, and I know that one of you here is going to send me on my way. He gets down and washes the feet of all the disciples. Now, that in itself is a big thing, to wash the dirty, smelly feet of people who are there with you. But he also washed the feet of Judas. He didn't wash everyone's feet and then skip him and keep going. I think, again, if I think you've got it in for me, I'm going to dismiss you a bit. It's like, I'm not going to wash your feet. Why would I want to do that? Goodness, how can Jesus do that? So, as we finish up, and we have our last song, and then after that we'll have ministry time. But if you want to revisit, rethink your relationships, first of all, where are you with God? Are you connected with him? You have got to be connected to God. If you are not connected to God and you go and try and remedy these broken relationships or create relationships, be it work, family, whatever, it's not going to be full-on powerful. But if you've got God at the centre, He will give you the words, the grace, the patience to be able to deal with these and redeem, rectify, create, build, improve. But you've got to have God first and central, and then you can look to others. That song, I Speak Jesus, it talks about, obviously, depression, but I speak it over the mountains, I speak it on the streets, I speak it over my family. We are a church family. Yesterday Gary and I had the privilege of baptising 5 people. It started off as 1, and within 2 weeks, suddenly it turned to 5. It was amazing, and you're going to hear more about that in a couple of weeks' time when we have some certificates to present to those people. But despite the short notice, the number of people that turned up to that, and then the words that were spoken over those 5 people, and the prayers and the blessings, and those people have great testimonies to share at their leisure with those around them or in a public forum. But those people made the call. This is what I want to do. And the number of people that turned up to support them. It was just amazing. It was just amazing. So, relationships are incredibly important. None of us are an island. God has not actually built us to be alone. He's built us to be in relationship. Now, it can be a relationship with lots of people, or it can be a relationship with a few people. It does not matter. It doesn't matter how many friends you have on Facebook. It doesn't matter how many people you know here, or whether I think, oh my goodness, there's so many people, I don't know where to go, I don't know where to be. Just come in and form connection with one person at a time, And if you are gifted, like Gary is, to be friends with everybody, go for it. If you are like me, who's just a bit more quiet and gets a bit more overwhelmed, just one at a time. You've got to chip away. And this is also what I believe, with good relationships, especially with God, we're in a better position to evangelise. And I don't mean hitting around the head soapbox evangelism, but we have got to be walking this earth like Jesus would. There is way too much anger and frustration and offence, and he said this and they did that, and I'm not going to talk to them, and I'm going to dismiss you because you gave me the stink eye or whatever. Jesus didn't approach life like that. He just went being Jesus. And each one of you is being built and created for a purpose, and you are all individuals. But as individuals, we need to come together. We need lots of drops to make the ocean. And as I said before, we need lots of people to create church, because church is people, church is community.